Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 320, and we're going to look at what DOGE has done this week. This week is also, this is Monday, February 24th, 2025. First, I want to say that I have an arbitration hearing tomorrow. I don't know how long it will take, but I know that the lawyer who's representing me, the union lawyer, is going to try to get it done tomorrow. Try to keep it simple as possible. It is really straightforward. I know now because we were able to see what the university has, what cards the university is holding through discovery the last time it was delayed. And they will try to come at me, rattle my cage, make me lose my temper, and hopefully they will be unsuccessful. So I just have to answer the questions clearly, and hopefully we'll have a good day. But I still won't get the what do you call it the judgment until 2 months after tomorrow. That's how much time lawyers and the arbitrator has to make a conclusion. The interesting thing too is that the person who wrote uh, the recommendation that my contract not be renewed will be there tomorrow. I have never met him in person. And so I've talked to him a couple times, once on the phone, and I think once maybe online, or maybe I've saw him online once, but I've never actually spoken with him face to face in person. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see him. I think he's seen me, but since I don't know what he looks like, he could have walked right by me and I didn't know who he was. All right, so hopefully I'll have some good news tomorrow. I'll be so excited tomorrow night that I'll make an episode just about that. Anyway, so a lot going on with DOGE. You may have heard about the email that he sent out over the weekend asking people to answer a simple question, write 5 things that they accomplished in the previous week. Now, I had written out this episode and then I had family devotions, so where we pray together and everything. And while we were doing that, my wife told me that he had to walk it back. And sure enough, he had to walk it back a little bit. But it might seem, and I'm just going to go on with what I had written, but it might seem that there was a different purpose, that he knew that he was going to have to walk it back. But there was a different purpose to it, like rattling the cage, maybe distracting everyone. And so something else might have been going on at the same time. But the original email went like this. Please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Please do not send any classified information, links, or attachments. Deadline is this Monday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I saw on Reddit, or actually someone posted a screenshot of something that was going around in Reddit, that someone did the math. They said this email will cost taxpayers at least $17 million. And the way they worked it out was this: estimated reply time of 10 minutes per worker, right? And wage and employment figures from the agency formerly known as U.S. Digital Service. Number of federal employees, 2.252 million workers, right? So almost 2.3 million workers. Total minutes is 22 point, no, 20, right, 22.5 million minutes, which makes 375,000 hours. Hourly wages are about 46 per hour. And so times 375,000 hours comes out to $17.263 million. And so that's supposed to make everyone think that Elon Musk is making federal workers waste a lot of time. And someone had responded, I couldn't find it again. I read it this morning when I was at school. Someone said that, oh, well, that means we have too many federal workers, right? And then I wondered how long it took for that person to write that out and calculate it instead of replying Elon Musk's email, right? Certainly more than 10 minutes. Um, so anyway, Uh, if you're working for a company, there are a lot of things that workers have to do, silly things that you have to do for the company, right? Little videos that you have to watch, little certification like anti-harassment, sexual harassment videos, all these things that you have to watch as part of the job. And over the years, it's hours and hours of videos and trainings that you have to go through. And you have to go through it because of insurance issues, because of the regulations that are in place. HR, basically human resources, needs everyone to have watched it, say they watched it, answer questions and stuff, to make sure that you had watched it, right? And you had no choice. It's part of the job. It was not a big deal, right? And especially this email, you just have to write five things that you did. I mean, you can't think of five things that you did that week. Maybe you're not doing anything at all. Um, a lot of workers said, well, it's none of your business. Yeah, it is. It's the business of all of the people who have to pay the tax dollars that employ you. And all of them, I mean, they complain about Elon Musk being an unelected bureaucrat, but these guys are all unelected lifelong bureaucrats, right? And so you can look at it in different ways, but most companies require workers to have to fill out evaluation forms, performance reviews, go through performance reviews, etc. And we had to do that even in the university. Now, depending on the department, it was either taken seriously or not. And the program that ultimately cut me loose, there was a lot of turnover. And it was also very political. And so if there were faculty that they wanted to have on board, then you had to get rid of a few to create the space to let them in. And I think I was one of those. Maybe it was several birds with one stone kind of situation with me. But all of these federal workers are being asked a simple question. Now, why is the simple question getting so much press and so much traction? Well, it's because so many people hate the guy who asked the question, right? You hate the guy, Musk, and so you hate the question, right? That's the thing. And you may be familiar with this, right? It's that association problem. So I hated everything that I had to do, but I did it anyway because I'm required to do it. And so likewise, all of these workers should have been required to do it. But as I said, it was walked back. And so we're just talking about this whole phenomena in retrospect. But if you don't like answering that email, you don't like your privacy being violated or being required to answer questions of someone who is not your boss, well, he is actually has the authority to ask that question. And if you don't like it, well, you can quit, you can find another job, you can become the boss of a company, and then don't ask any of your employees if they're doing their work or not. And it's pretty easy to know that most federal workers do not work every single minute of every day, right? So the what do you call it? The assumption and the outrage is that you want me to take out 10 minutes of my day, right? Because I'm doing nothing but work, right? I'm not getting a drink of water. I'm not even going to the bathroom. I'm not eating lunch. I'm just working every single second. And so I don't have time to answer this email kind of attitude is just kind of ridiculous, right? And it reminds me of a conversation I had with my father once upon a time, right? My father would, I would be doing something and I hated doing it, and he would look at me and he'd say, "Do better." And in my anger and sort of, to try to say something that he can't respond to, I would say, "I'm doing my best," right? So he would say, "Do better," and I would just say, "I'm doing my best," right? So like, I can't do better than this. And he shot back, "Do better than your best," which made me so angry. I was like, and so if you just look at the language, it's like, how am I supposed to do better than my best? If I'm already doing my best, how do I do better? Now, I was just angry at the fact that he came back at me, but he knew and I knew I was goofing off a lot, right? That I was procrastinating, right? So I wasn't actually doing work every single second, right? Like he did. That was the problem. Like I couldn't, push it back again, like, oh, you goof off all the time. No, he literally never, hardly ever goofed off. And if he goofed off, it was with a purpose, like he would be talking to us or something like that, right? So, and there was no way I was going to be able to maintain that kind of discipline that he had. I didn't want to do more work, right? I wanted to goof off, wanted to have some free time. And so, there was that. But I knew he was right. And so all these federal workers are mad because they're being outed, right? Because of the level of transparency that is being requested of them. They have to show their work, right? And so their game is up, all their fooling around, messing around on the job. Now they can't do it anymore, right? Or potentially anyway. And so I have no sympathy for them at all, primarily because the government apparatus spies on all of us all of the time, right? And so they get to hide behind their, their job, their occupation. I work for the government. I'm a civil servant, right? And so they're the ones that are spying on us. Why can't we see what you're doing? Right. So there's that. And so this whole email thing is just so utterly ridiculous. And I think highlights the fact that a lot of these federal workers are doing absolutely no work. Right. And if you go on X, you'll see a lot of stories of how people who want to do more work, they cannot, right? Because of the structure of waste that is built into the system, right? So Ron Paul, Peter Schiff, all these guys, they say that you can't have a government program without waste. I mean, waste is part of the equation. And that's the thing, right? And that's what all these federal workers are upset about is that if they are part of the waste, then they're going to lose their job. And anyone who's left, well, they're going to have to pick up the slack. And so there's no more, you know, coasting through the day any longer. They actually have to do work. Now, obviously, some workers do a lot of work, but of course, there are a lot who do not. I had a cousin who was, I think, DOD, and he said he was frustrated with his company because he had to wait for other people to do their work before he could work on his stuff, and they never got it done. It was, trying to do it as quickly as possible was never part of the equation, right? And they want to draw things out so they can I guess, milk more from, milk more payment, milk more money from the government. So I have no sympathy for this at all. No one in America who pays taxes should have any sympathy for this at all. All right. Next topic is Joe Rogan. I have nothing but respect for the guy. I mean, I did watch a few episodes of was it Taxi that he was? No, not it wasn't Taxi. It was is that news that was news show that I'm blanking on it. It was a news show anyway, and he would just be sort of this character that walks in and walks out. And then, but I did see him in Fear Factor, and then I heard about all the stuff that he's doing since. A lot of respect, especially what he did with Spotify. But in the same way as I have a problem with some of the things that Jimmy Dore says, Joe Rogan says some things which really, I mean, I understand what he's trying to say, but he's missing a couple pieces. So I'll fill it in. So he was talking with Woody Harrelson, who apparently is libertarian, talks like one. But like I tried to listen to the whole thing, but listening to two guys who, just basically talk about doing drugs all the time, it's just, I don't know. I couldn't do it. I couldn't finish it. I listened to like 70% of it though. And one of the things that he talks about about the 30-minute mark of that conversation is when he starts talking about profit, right? And it's the profit motive which has led to moral decay in our society, right? And it's this understanding of profit that he has, which is taking him to a dangerous place. It's leading him to have these bad takes on profit. And so, what is profit? Profit is representative of the value that we create. The more profit there is, the more value you are creating. That's the key, value. Because if your profit is very low, that means the amount of value that you're creating in comparison with the resources that you're consuming to do that work is it's not really worth it. And if there's zero profit, right, or if you're using more resources than what you're actually producing, then you're wasting, right? You're wasting resources, right? Because there's no profit in it, right? And excuse me. And so that's the thing that he's missing is that profit is just simply an indicator, a marker, a gauge for all of us to know whether what we're doing is worth it or not. So war has no value. It doesn't make anything. Rather, it destroys all of it. All aspects of war is destruction. So some people want to make the claim that through war, we have these inventions and stuff, as if you couldn't have these inventions without having to kill so many people and destroy so much infrastructure, right? So war does not produce value. Even the making of weapons is not really producing value because you're making things that are going to destroy other things, right? It has no other use. And so war as such, there is no value. It just destroys value. That is the nature of war. And so people who profit from war, right? They are stealing value from others, like the Viking thing, right? So they might enrich themselves, but what do? They destroy value in order to do it. And then they use up whatever it is that they steal, and then they have to do it all over again, right? And so this process creates nothing of value. Right? Drugs which harm people also, you're destroying value, right? So maybe some people got healed, but is it worth it to have so many people be harmed by the drug that you are producing? And so again, especially the way a lot of so-called jabs are being marketed these days, it's destroying value. Okay. And so the pharmaceutical companies and the weapons manufacturers, they might be making a lot of quote unquote profit, but it's only because they're plundering so many other people. And so what he's neglecting is the role of government in enabling all of this, right? The collusion or the cooperation or the backroom handshake between big business and government, aka fascism. So government protects pharmaceutical companies against lawsuits, right? And so all of the loss, all of the destruction is hidden, right? It's not allowed to be revealed. Meanwhile, all these people are suffering. So they gain, quote unquote, wealth or dirty money, but at the expense of all these other people that are losing so much. And so when you do the math, they're actually destroying value, right? Because they're also subsidized by the government too to make these drugs, and so and then they sell it back to us, and it's harmful to us, and so it's destroying value. Governments declare the wars. We don't declare the wars. I don't know anyone in Russia that I hate so much that I think we should go to war. I don't know anyone in Ukraine, for that matter, that I hate so much that I want to go and start killing people, right? Government awards the contracts which enable all of the graft, right? It's government that is the problem, right? So government then gives the contract, awards the contracts to weapons manufacturers. They get to make all this money. But how do we keep making weapons? Well, you got to have a war, right? And so it's government which enables that system of war, that destruction of value. It misallocates resources and energy, time, effort to the war machine instead of making life better for the rest of us. Okay. And so he says, it's a symptom of moral decay, this pursuit of profit, but it's not actually. But right. So because the pursuit of profit is what you're pursuing value. You're trying to find what is actually valuable. And because of the interference of government, they are halting the discovery of morality, right? And so I made an episode not that long ago. You know what? I'll look for it right now. Hold on. It was episode 299 where I talk about truth discovery. But truth, what is truth is moral, right? And so I think I talk about it in a bunch of my sermons where when we're talking about living a life of faith, it's a living trying to discover what is in fact moral, right? And obviously, depending on your religion, it's going to be, unique to you, and that's fine. But we can't just simply say this is what's moral and now we're not doing it anymore, and so now we have moral decay. No, no, it's not that at all. In fact, what's going on is that that's what government is doing. Government is using the perception of what is moral to bring in all of the corruption, the graft, the bribery, all of this stuff. Right. That's what they're doing, but they're using what people perceive and think and understand is moral to do it, right? And so then, in order to bring about what a lot of people might consider moral, they're going to write all these regulations, right? So, legislation of morality. It has the opposite effect, where now you can no longer think in that area. You can no longer innovate. You can no longer, research or seek anything other than what is officially, the declared morality. Real quick, I know a lot of time has already gone by, but just to say, so if a lot of people believe that a certain jab is going to create or result in a high incidence of autism, then if the government didn't legislate morality, did not give a certain company the contract to continue to make that jab, right? You would have competing companies coming up with alternate, mixtures that will not have the ingredients that a lot of people suspect is giving that side effect, right? And so now you have people make a choice. Do you want this jab from this company or this jab from this other company? And then it's by that choice, and then people doing their research and reading the background of this and that injection, then you can make a choice, like which one do you think you want to take? And so we can discover what is, in fact, the moral choice, right? And by legislating morality, you are replacing this activity of discovering morality with platitudes and cliche, right? TikTok influencers pretending to be moral when in fact they're just acting, right? It's like, what is it? I remember there was a time where someone was like, I woke up looking like this, right? So he just rolled out of bed and they look fantastic, right? And it turns out that they spent 2 hours putting makeup on, then lay down in bed and then turn on the camera and then they say, oh, I just woke up. It's fake, right? But if you don't know better, if you're naive, then you believe it, right? And that's what government does. It advertises itself as the bastion of morality and truth when in fact it's just enabling all of this corruption. Remember, I made a video, had an episode where we talked about the standard of living in gold terms. If you want to live in the same level or standard as 1970, you have to be making around $500,000 a year today, right? If we use gold, right? How much gold you could buy in 1970 versus how much money you would need to buy the same amount of gold today. It's well over $500,000 now, right? And so really what's going on is that people who seem to be gaining wealth, they are stealing the wealth of everybody else, not only from the people who had to die as a result of all these government policies, but through inflation, they're stealing our wealth. And so it's not profit that they're pursuing. They're not creating value, right? See, profit means value. They're not creating value. They're stealing our wealth, right? They're stealing it. And so it's a transfer of wealth. You hear that expression a lot, a transfer of wealth from us, the normal folk, to people who are taking advantage of the system, who have politicians in their pocket. If there is a sovereign debt crisis, if there is a reset of some kind, then you'll see a crash, and all of the true costs will have to start revealing itself. I mean, Part of the cost is staring at us in our faces, right? The debt of $36 trillion, dollars, the running budget, right? And then if you count all the unfunded liabilities as something along the lines of $200 trillion, dollars, right? And so, yeah, the actual costs are there. They're telling you this is not value. You are not creating value. You are destroying value. You are destroying $200 trillion dollars worth of value with all of this activity that you're doing. So without the force of law, without government, without inflation, without the police state, without the surveillance state, none of this would be possible. All those people who are, the weapons manufacturers and the drug companies would not be able to do it. People would balk at the idea of having to spend that much money. No one would do it, right? So that's why people like us, we want a small government with very few regulations. Then profit is only made possible, right? You can only have profit. Profit is only possible when you create value, when you do something better for less money, right? Fewer people will buy from those people who do worse, where it's more expensive and is not as good. And I mentioned in the progressive era politics when I talked about the progressive era, Theodore Roosevelt, yeah, they introduced a lot of this corruption. So what we need again is freedom. With freedom, we get to decide. We have choice. And in that process, we discover what is really moral. I know Joe Rogan will never listen to this, but hopefully you will be able to have a clearer understanding that profit is actually good. It is necessary because it tells us what is in fact creating value. That's it for this episode, and I will talk to you hopefully on the other side of my arbitration hearing.